Greetings all. Welcome to another session of TESOL Methods and Materials. Today we're going to talk a little bit about integrating the 4 skills. And maybe I should say the 4 skills and 2 databases. We're going to talk a little about why that's important and then give you an example or two of some things that can be done. Okay, why integrate all the skills? Why integrate listening, reading, speaking, and writing into the classes? Why not separate them out? Now there are a number of places, a number of people who actually do separate them out. I find it difficult to do, although you may have classes that emphasize one certain area over another. Indeed, you're using all the skills in all of your classes. At least that's what I have seen from my 20+ years experience. Some reasons why you want to do that is because production and reception are 2 sides of the same coin. If you want to have a listening class, you really can't do much with it unless you also have some form of writing and or speaking and or reading. So you can't get away with it. Language is designed to be in and out, input and output. So it's also part of interaction. Interaction is the sending and receiving of information, just as I had mentioned. Just like right now we're doing something where we're sending and receiving information. Even though there's a delay in who's speaking to who, it's still being done. And when you agree, you're going to acknowledge somehow, whether it's a nod of the head or whether it's a, an or something like that. So there's always sending and receiving information. Thus, we're going to be using, at the very least, 2 of the 4 skills. Right, at the very least, 2 of the 4 skills. Another reason, and I would agree with this as well, you ignore any part and you lose part of the richness of language. Now, that may be less important to some people who are only focusing on listening or only focusing on reading because their job requires it. But for the majority of people who are studying, they do want to enjoy the richness and diversity of language. And by limiting one section, you're going to be limiting that richness. Number 4 here, seeing the whole language is intrinsically motivating. When you can see the forest through the trees, that's going to be more motivating to the learner. When they can realize that all of their skills can be used simultaneously and all of their skills can be used to communicate, it's more motivating to students, intrinsically so. And lastly, often one of the skills reinforces the other. And again, research bears this out, that when you're using one particular skill, you generally have other skills that support it as it goes along. So there's a reinforcement system that's going along. Now, as I said before, there are some reasons for that. One might be philosophical. So, for example, if someone believes in the audiolingual method, their focus is going to be much more on listening and speaking and much less on reading and writing. That's a philosophical reason for separating them. It might be for administrative considerations. There may be, you may be in a school and they have a requirement that students have to take 4 or 12 credits per quarter, per semester. And in order to create 4 classes, or 12 credits, 15 credits, whatever it is, you separate the courses, and maybe you separate them by a category. You might have a course that's reading and vocabulary. Even though you're going to be speaking and listening and writing involved in that class, the emphasis may be on reading and vocabulary. Again, just to get the 12 credits. You're going to have another class that's going to be, writing and grammar, and another class that's going to be, listening and speaking. You may change it another way. You may change the course and call it presentation or public speaking. While the emphasis is on speaking, right? But that's more for administrative needs, because when you go to write a speech, what do? Well, you've got to write it, you've got to revise it, you've got to read it, then you have to practice speaking and listening to it. So you're still using all the skills. Lastly, there is the student-specific needs. There are some students who, for example, since coming back to the United States, I've met a whole bunch of students who are very conversant in Spanish. They live in a Spanish community, but they don't know how to read in Spanish because they never did. So then they're at home, they spoke in Spanish. With their friends, they spoke in Spanish, but everything that they read was in English. Everything they did at school was in. So they get to high school, they get to college, and they're like, I can't read. They can't read Spanish. So they enroll in a Spanish class so they can learn how to read. That's student-specific needs. So there are reasons for doing it, but generally speaking, integrated is going to be better. Brown suggests a variety of models for skills integration. All 4 skills. I have 6 here because I talk about the 2 databases. The 2 databases being vocabulary and grammar. They can be covered and strengthened by using one of these models. One is content-based instruction. Content-based instruction, again, is where content is the focus. Content is being taught, and at the same time, we're also trying to help students learn the grammar vocabulary needed, the writing skills needed, the reading skills needed to survive, to do well in the content that they're covering in the class. Another might be theme-based. Now, in content-based instruction, you have the content is paramount, and language is kind of a little lower. With theme-based, they're both the same. You're studying both things at the same time. They both take precedence. I've never heard of a system that actually used theme-based, but I decided to put it in here because Brown listed it. Another type of model would be experiential learning or discovery learning. That was often inquiry-based learning. It's learning by doing. You go out and you discover something. It incorporates personal experiences into the classroom because they're actually going to discover. It's an interesting mode of teaching. I have done some research on it, and it certainly is more motivating, especially when the elements being discovered are of the student's own choosing. They're deciding to go explore something. That's more exciting that way. All right, so we've got content-based, task-based, theme-based, experiential. Task-based, I think we've talked about before, task-based language teaching, where you give students a task to complete, a project that they need to get done. Obviously, you give them some support, scaffolding to do that, but the primary focus is on completing the task. All right. Another model of skills integration is the episode experience. Again, something I never heard of before. But I do agree with the essential concepts, components here. Students are going to better understand things if everything is broken down into little bite-sized chunks that they can handle. Giving a student, Paradise Lost, or giving them some long piece of something to read and to deal with is going to overwhelm them. They're not going to be able to complete it. Allowing a lower intermediate student to sit into a 45-minute lecture at a school, they're not going to be able to survive that. So we want to give them smaller bites that they can handle. Aller calls these little bites episodes, like on a TV show where you've got episode 1, episode 2. You have these little bites that they can handle. They're short, sequenced dialogues. And this could be used, again, using all of the skills, as a way to do integrated skills approach. I personally liked using TV commercials. They're short. They're not sequenced, but they are short, and they can be used to teach all 4 skills. That's not necessarily a model, that's an activity. But still, I did like using the commercials, and there are tons of them online. Brown lists on page 296 of his textbook, which is right here. He lists a little lesson that is integrated skills. So the warm-up includes only a couple of the skills, but the presentation includes listening, writing, and speaking. So does the focus on form, which is grammar and listening. Production, again, uses all 4 skills. And then the wind down uses, I think, 2 of those skills. But go take a look at it just to give you an example of what an integrated lesson does. When you're trying to develop a lesson, which you're going to be doing, obviously, for your final projects, you'll want to try to incorporate all of the skills into your lesson. You'll also want to incorporate the 2 databases, vocabulary and grammar. And that's all for the integrated skills segment here. If you do have any questions, please let me know. I'll be glad to answer your questions. Talk to you later now. Bye.